And we are live with the Unprocessed podcast. I'm excited to be joined today by Jared Seidman, college student, content creator, and local food enjoyer. So we'll get a little bit more into your background and how you got to where you are as we go along. But I just want to jump right in to my initial question. So
Yeah, let's do
you're
it.
20 years old. So why are you focused on eating local, nourishing food instead of partying, getting DoorDash, doing all the
Yeah,
typical?
I mean, great question. I think it's the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I'm a college student. I live with a bunch of my buddies. There's a lot of temptation. They're in fraternities. I live in Southern California, like 6 months out of the year. Um, and, initially that environment really affected the way that I was living in a negative way. I just finished my sophomore year. And, my first year and a half to 2 years of school, it was really unhealthy. And it was really just, what your stereotypical college student would do. Um, just a lot of vices, a lot of things that didn't make me feel good. Um, and I suppose my aunt really like inspired me to start to make some healthy changes. I'm an only child, and both of my parents have some health issues, some autoimmune diseases. And so I kind of just had this epiphany that was facilitated by my aunt, where I decided like I'm going all in on this, and I really want to make some lifestyle changes. And that sort of started with just eating healthy and then eventually transitioned to more of like a focus on local, single ingredient foods and,
Yeah.
and what you do at Locavana. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
That's right.
cool.
Yeah. So I guess where did the transition between or from healthy to local specifically? Like, how did you have that specific?
Yeah, it was very progressive.
Yeah.
So when I first started the health grind or the healthy lifestyle, it was mostly like grocery stores, Whole Foods, Sprouts.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I still shop there occasionally for certain items, but it was very progressive. And so that was kind of where I was sourcing food for a while. And then slowly I started to learn more and more about the value of local food, not just in regard to supporting the local economy, but nutritionally and the difference that local food has compared to something you would buy in the grocery store.
Yeah.
I saw a statistic, I'm not sure if I'm quoting it correctly, but the example used was a carrot. And if you look at like the nutritional value of a carrot,
Yeah.
say like X amount of years ago, like 50 or more than that, and then you compare it to today, it's like the farming practices that we've adapted and monopolized and used to like mass produce certain foods
Yeah.
is severely jeopardizing the quality of the food itself.
Yeah.
And I understand that there's a demand and we need to meet that, but at the same time, we can't be jeopardizing the nutritional value of the crops and the animals we're raising just so that we can maximize profit. And I think
Yeah.
that's the source of it.
Yeah. Yeah. The supply chain is a big issue. Like you said,
Absolutely.
profit maximizing is one, but I think like when you get in, like when you really start to look into it, like the grocery store model, it really can't support anything else because of, Whole Foods started as sort of a local, smaller grocer,
Yeah.
and they did a lot of sourcing from local farms. But as they grew, as they're bought out, you can't really do that and maximize your margins.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, and then not only the growing practices, but what we found just talking to farmers, looking into it. I mean, just looking at the data, it's pretty obvious that when you're sourcing food from 1,000 miles away, so when you said you live in California, a lot of the time, all of the food at our grocery stores comes from California, even the
Yeah.
organic food. So in order for it to get onto a truck and come thousands of miles, they have to pick it before it's ripe. It's got to sit in that truck for a week, 2 weeks as it's traveling here, and it sits in a warehouse, and then it comes to the store, and then it sits on the shelves. So
Exactly.
at that point, the nutrition's degraded, and then it also tastes terrible.
Yeah, and you're not
Yeah.
even accounting for what's sprayed on the crops to
Oh
just
yeah.
make it like
Even organic
last.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And even
Yeah.
organic, you're absolutely right. And
Yeah.
so,
And that's one of the big things and one of the big reasons why I love the concept of Locavana. Obviously,
Yeah.
I'm biased, but even like in the grocery store, like on the shelves, it's kind of hard. There's a lot of greenwashing, and it's hard
Hmm.
to really see between the lines and understand what these words mean, whether it's organic, and people say natural, like greenhouse grown, like there's all these buzzwords that are flying around, regenerative.
Yeah.
But in the produce section, there's a unique barrier there where there's absolutely no visibility into farming practices. So
Hmm.
it's either conventional or it's organic.
Yeah.
But
It's
there's
kind of your
nothing.
only options.
Yeah, exactly. And there's such a wide range of what that means.
Hmm.
Like if you're shopping from Cal Organic or Taylor Farms, one of the big places in California, like we're saying, it's so heavily sprayed that
Yeah.
I've actually seen that organic, like industrial organic, is sprayed more than conventional.
I think it's just the type of chemicals that are being sprayed.
Right. Yeah.
That's the difference.
Right. But
Yeah.
I don't see how any sort of chemical fertilizer can be considered certified organic.
Tell
I
me
think,
about it, and I completely agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to like a bit of your journey, so was it
Yeah.
really the seeing people around you suffering from autoimmune issues and then just health issues that relate to your nutrition? Is that what inspired your aunt's journey and then that translated to you?
Yeah, I mean, my aunt's journey is a little unique. Her mother passed away from cancer, and so that kind of like pushed her down this journey of understanding why that happened and reasoning with it. But as far as my situation goes, both of my parents have had some pretty tough health issues. And like I said, I'm an only child, so that's kind of the only, um,
Yeah.
how do I put this? It's the only example that I can kind of like look up to and
Mm,
see in real time. And so, I've seen them make some awesome changes over the last few years, um, most of which was facilitated by me, just
yeah.
trying to help them get healthier. But yeah, a lot of it was just not feeling my best.
Hmm.
And there was a huge surge over the last few years in wellness and especially in social media, like younger generations, Gen Z, starting to kind of wake up and take their health back.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was kind of like what really pushed me to do it as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned social media, and I think that's such an interesting topic because I agree
Yeah.
that there's like a movement among young people to get healthy, but there's different like factions of like belief systems of which direction people go. And I think
Hmm.
there's like the fitness community, and
Yeah.
that's really focused on protein,
Like
but
macros.
but the sourcing doesn't necessarily matter. It's
Exactly.
how do you maximize your protein powders, shakes,
Yeah.
bars, all that kind of stuff.
And that's such an important distinction to make
Yeah.
because a lot of people kind of lump it all together. Like there
Mhm.
are different ways of eating within the niche of health.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's important. And so I guess how do you sort of brush away the noise and focus on like I guess why is whole organic local foods like to you, why does that stand out as the obvious right answer, I guess, in a sea of
Yeah, I mean, look, I am not religious by any means, but the idea of something coming from the earth, coming from God, if you will,
yep.
just feels right. It's
Mhm.
very intuitive.
Yep.
And if you think of like all of the packaged foods that we have, even though there are some very clean packaged foods that you can find, it just doesn't feel like that's nourishing me.
Yeah.
And I just, when I have a relationship with the people that are growing my food and raising it, it feels like there's a connection happening. And
Yeah.
I think that connection is so important to the food itself.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I find that like even my buddies at college, like and my family as well, like people have become so disconnected from their food. And
Yeah.
that's really the root of the issue. Like you're not really appreciating what you have and what you might be able to get.
Yeah.
And so many people just see food as fuel, and that's the extent of it.
Right.
Grabbing a quick Chipotle bowl after class. Like, I get that. I get my roommates wanting to do that. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I used to do the same thing, but like now I want nothing more than to come home and nourish myself with a home cooked meal with local foods. And excuse me. And it makes me feel my best, perform my best.
Yep.
And so
Yeah,
it's
that's
all
what I was gonna
connected.
say. Like with the intuitive eating, like it's so clear. Like once you start doing it for a while, and you're sort of detoxing yourself from the seed oils and the quick fast food type things, like
Yeah.
you really can feel it. Like it makes you feel good. It tastes good. Like it's just, I don't know. It's hard to quantify like what it is, but there's a whole network of energy and feelings and connection that like when your food is, it's hard to describe, but like you can tell
It's
when
it's a
your food
feeling.
was
You kind of just you
you can
experience
tell
it
when
and
your
you
food was
understand it.
raised with love and naturally and in alignment with the earth and
Totally.
yeah,
And it
which is
just feels good. Like
yeah.
it feels like you're doing the right thing. You're supporting the right people.
Yeah, and it tastes it tastes good. Like, I always go
Of
back to
course,
taste
yeah.
because people don't like you get so used to the I guess artificial good tasting food because there's
Yeah.
a certain thing about like you said like a Chipotle bowl or McDonald's like it's artificial but when you get used to it that's like what tastes good to you.
Totally. And
But once you start yeah
there's this adjustment that occurs where you transition from processed foods to whole foods, and there's certainly cravings in the earlier stages, but eventually the processed foods don't even taste good anymore.
no you don't
Like
want
your taste buds are rewired to no longer crave that and enjoy the taste of that. And so
yeah
it's really powerful.
yeah it is. So like we said, you're a college student, and that's a unique environment to be in.
Yeah.
Like I personally, I was very similar, and honestly similar timing with with the transition. So
Hmm.
I graduated in 2023, so I'm 24.
Okay.
First 2 years, my first year when you're in a dorm, you're so limited. Like
Yeah, tell me about
you're
it.
on a meal plan. You've got like just quick stop like type burger
DoorDash,
snacks, DoorDash. It's like
brutal, yeah.
it's really designed this is what baffles me. It's like designed in the opposite way.
I
Like
know.
I went to
It's
Michigan.
counterproductive.
Yeah, I went to Michigan State and like there isn't a grocery store, let alone a health food store within a mile of campus. So
Yeah.
your only options literally are going to the dining hall, which is not not good for you by any means. There's
Hmm.
like a Target and I don't know, it's just it seems like it's backwards. So like being in that environment, especially your first couple years when you're in a
Yeah.
dorm, as what tips would you give somebody in that situation to at least just get started? Because like you said, it's a transition. It's hard. You can't just go cold turkey and switch overnight. But I guess
Totally.
where would you start if you were to do it again?
My biggest piece of advice would be take what you can get. I think, especially in today's day and age, social media portrays a lifestyle and a way of living that is unrealistic for a lot of people. And so you feel like very behind and like you're missing out. But if you can do small incremental changes each day and just, like I said, take what you can get, and I'll elaborate on that. Like,
Yeah.
I had a microwave in my freshman dorm, and look, like today I probably wouldn't microwave anything, but if I was in my shoes again, like there would be things that I would be able to cook in that microwave that would be better for me than something I would get at the dining hall or
100%.
the
Yeah.
local store. Another example is like I had like student bucks on one of my cards,
Yeah.
and there was this really low quality water filter in our freshman dorm that everyone would get water from, but I think if I was in my shoes again, I would probably save some of those bucks and try and get some high quality spring water for myself.
Yeah.
So it's really just, it's trying not to do everything at once and be a perfectionist and
Mhm.
just utilizing the resources around you that you're able to use for change.
Yeah. So do you go to school in California or is that where you're?
Yeah, I'm currently in New Jersey, but I go to school in Southern California. It's a
Nice.
pretty
So
small university. It's called Chapman University.
okay. Do you have like farmers markets and ample?
Yeah, so what's awesome is our school partners with local farmers.
Mm,
It's called Orange Homegrown.
okay.
We live in the city of Orange, and so every Saturday morning there's like a parking lot next to our university, and all the farmers just have a huge market, ranchers. I'm seriously so spoiled out there, man.
Yeah, that's
Just with
awesome.
the Southern California weather, like it's so easy to raise good food and crops, so
Yeah.
it's amazing.
So yeah, I've actually been talking to MSU about trying to set up something similar because like that's just a such a glaring like I said, such a glaring issue where the
Yeah,
accessibility it's not there like healthy eating like getting whole foods alone is it's inaccessible but then like taking that step to get local, organic, like fresh food. It's just
Hmm.
there's no options on campus, and I'm sure that's the case with most campuses. Obviously, in California, it might be a little different, but um, so piling this all together, so you do all this, you live this way, and then you also choose to share it on social media. So
Yeah.
when did you start? How did you start, and why?
So I started making TikToks. That was the first type of social media I created, and it was freshman year of high school. But none of it was health centric or advice oriented. It was mostly vlogs where I would do a day in the life. And I wouldn't have much personality at all. It would just be like music playing over the videos. And for a while, that is the only content that I made. Just vlogs, school, gym, really anything I was doing, vacations. And that kind of got me to about 10,000 followers. And then slowly, I want to say like mid to the end of freshman year of college, I started to transition to health content. I did a pretty cool fitness internship with Young LA. Um, and so that's kind of when the wellness started, more so than like the lifestyle and the day in the lives. And then eventually that turned into to eating and living. But that summer, last summer was really when I went all in on everything.
Yeah. So what kind of response have you gotten on? I haven't seen TikTok. I've only looked at your Instagram, but like,
Yeah.
what kind of response have you gotten from people? Because they seem to do really well. Honestly, I found you because just for inspiration for our page content. I've
Yeah.
sent it to my founder a couple times, like we got to do this because it really works.
That's dope, man. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I'm sorry, what was your question?
Just I guess what kind of response have you gotten from people?
Yeah, yeah.
What kind of things have you brought in?
So it's interesting because social media is unfortunately very toxic, and
Yeah.
I've had my fair share of hate, absolutely. I think all of us have, but I have a very unique perspective on that. I think that it's so important, and I think it's very necessary. I
Yep.
think having open dialogue on a topic like this is so good for society. And don't get me wrong, I get some pretty heinous comments, but
For sure.
I think it also, ironically, because these people are hating, like it actually boosts my engagement pretty much.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so it is really good for my account and my brand just having these like conversations and my comments. But I will say people close to me have been extremely receptive. I made like a little TikTok story a couple months ago about this, but my roommates at school have slowly started to make some changes. And it hasn't really been like this open discussion where like I tell them, hey, you should do this. It's very like low key or
Yeah.
casual. And like I'll slowly notice like, oh, he has raw cheese now in the fridge. Oh, that milk's grass fed. Like that's interesting because like my boys never cared to eat like this
Yeah.
ever. Um, they have no reason to. Like they just don't really care.
Wow.
And so it's so cool to see them slow. Like my buddy at school only drinks Mountain Valley now, and it's just wild to me that like the way that I'm living has set this standard where people that close to me see it, they see the benefit and they take the initiative to make the change on their own.
That's awesome. So do
It's
you
really cool.
do you talk about it at all? Like obviously, and I've found this, I think most people in similar shoes do, where you don't want to be preachy to people. You don't want to talk about what they're doing specifically, but do talk about what you're doing. So sort of like giving the benefits and why you're doing what you're doing.
Full transparency, I struggle with that. Or at least I did when I first started. I really went down the rabbit hole when I was first introduced to this lifestyle.
Yeah.
I'd say a little bit too much, and it was very extreme. I was scared of a lot of different things because I finally kind of understood
Oh
the
yeah.
way that the system was created, and it was bad, man. Like I'd be afraid to shower in certain places if I didn't have a filter, be afraid to sleep in certain beds if they weren't the right material. And fortunately, I've gotten a lot better at just kind of like being okay with that. But it was very, very overwhelming for me when I finally kind of realized the way that things were. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned like fibers and filters and stuff. So I take it you sort of it's not just the food. So like what other things do you do in your life that would be more
Yeah,
holistic or
definitely not just the food.
yeah.
I think I have a very unique way that I live. At least I like to think. I describe it as the intersection between holistic living and biohacking. And
Okay.
so what that means exactly is I live in a way that is rooted in certain ancestral tenets and ways of life, our circadian clock, our body, just regulating that and, going to bed and waking up at the same time,
Yep.
getting morning light, things like that that are very like ancestral and rooted in our origin as humans.
Yep.
But simultaneously, I also utilize a lot of modern technological devices and biohacking devices that allow me to, just experience longevity and things like that. So,
Yep.
I use red light therapy. I have a really high quality shower filter that I use.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, even like wired headphones, like not using AirPods because of
Oh,
the electromagnetic frequencies.
yeah.
Um,
Big one.
so yeah, it's just it's a really interesting relationship between like ancient and modern.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
far along are you on transitioning your closet to natural fibers?
Dude, it's a process. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I try and only wear natural fibers if it's
Yeah.
touching my skin.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
like I have certain like polyester pieces that I got when I was younger and stuff that I really like.
Yeah.
So I'll wear like a cotton t-shirt and then on top of it, it'll have like some type of
Mm.
plastic
Yeah.
fiber.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the areas that we kind of went like overboard right away, where it's like cleaning out the closet and it's like all your sweatshirts and
I
everything,
know, man.
all
I don't have it
cotton.
in me to just throw everything out or
I
donate
know.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got stuff that's like pretty much everything that I have now that's not organic fiber is like thrifted
Yeah,
pieces that because I mean there's a different angle to that where it's like
totally.
it's been used for years and it's sustainable and whatever. But again, not touching your skin. I think that's pretty
Yeah,
important.
totally.
Um, so what I guess to me at least, even like I share very similar views, and some of it is maybe unpopular, but I haven't seen you post anything that I would say is controversial. I
Yeah.
guess. So like what do people latch onto like in the comments? Like what I guess if you had to boil it down to your most commonly received hate, like what is it
Yeah.
about?
It's a great question. I post a lot of really pretty groceries and I've managed to kind of source foods in a way that is financially maintainable. But a lot of people see a young college student who's just posting all of these like seemingly expensive items. And that's really like the source of a lot of my hate. I get a lot of like mommy and daddy's money,
Yeah,
stuff like that, where people just um, they think it's a little arrogant the way that I'm kind of presenting everything on this like silver platter, or just in
yeah,
a way that's like a little braggy.
yeah,
Obviously not my intent at all. And I'm
yeah,
always open to discussions in my comments. Like I'm always responding to people if they're, able to have a conversation with me.
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I think because of my age, people just feel like it's a little unfair, the way that I'm living.
Hmm.
And I don't disagree with that, but
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I think it's an important conversation to have. I mean, people are obviously like price sensitive and there's gonna be a certain group of people that can't access it, whether that's geographical based or whether that's economical. But
yeah,
I think a lot of people and what we've seen from talking to people is like there's so many people that are in a demographic that money isn't necessarily an object, or money at least for your food, but there's people who are upper middle class and they're spending $50 a week on groceries, but then they're also spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on DoorDash and
it's
Grubhub
such
deliveries.
an important comment because
Yeah,
when people do see what I post and they make these hateful comments, I don't think they realize like I'm not getting a $10 coffee every day. I'm
Right.
not hitting the bars and
Yep.
getting like $50 of cocktails or beers or whatever. Like this is where I allocate my money. And that's
Yeah.
really it. This is my priority.
Yeah.
And
And
so
that's
I guess,
important for college students to hear too, because again, it's the DoorDash is, I mean, you'll
yeah.
spend fifty
I
dollars
mean,
on a meal from a shitty restaurant, and
dude, the DoorDash messed me up freshman year. It
yeah.
was just so easy and so
Hmm.
convenient. Um, but yeah, I think people just don't and truthfully, like I feel like I could be better at explaining this, but people don't really understand that like this is my life. Like this is really the most important thing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. People are
And
spending money on what they prioritize, and like
totally.
you're either gonna pay now or you're gonna pay later with your health and your
And
health.
I think it's a reflection of the way people see food and groceries. Like so many people probably see that as like backdoor, secondary, like I'm gonna do this. It's not my main priority. And so
Hmm.
they see somebody with all of these like beautiful, objectively expensive foods and they think like they apply the same thinking like, damn, this kid's probably spending so much money on other things and still getting all of these incredible groceries.
Yeah.
But it's not that's not the way it works for me at all.
Right, exactly. It's really about prioritizing. And then there's like not even just within food and like DoorDash and the bars and stuff. Like people spend money on so many things that are just not like whether it's Amazon every week. I mean, people spend so much money on Amazon.
Yeah, I know.
Or like subscriptions, Netflix and Hulu and all these different streaming services, like things
Yeah,
that aren't essential. And you even mentioned like AirPods, like things like that, where you could buy $20 wired headphones. They're better for you and
totally.
they're like $200 cheaper. I don't know how much AirPods are, but it's like a priority thing. So okay, I want to get just sort of more conversational. It's like into your views a little bit more.
Yeah, let's do it.
What would and even if you don't necessarily post about it, but like what would you say is your most controversial health or food take?
Mm. I was thinking about talking about this.
Oh yeah,
Hmm. I'm trying to word this in a way where it's not uh, dangerous rhetoric.
sure.
Um, this isn't necessarily like controversial through the lens of society itself, but it's more so relevant to my situation. So I feel like I should bring it up, and I'm gonna clip some of these moments from the show and show some of my audience. But
Oh, yeah.
I am still a 20-year-old college student, and as much as I love the way that I live, it's very isolating, and there's a huge disconnect that happens. And so I think I need certain things that don't harm my health too much, that allow me to still feel like I'm part of a college community with my buddies. And the most striking example of that is marijuana. Um, when I was younger, I used it a lot, and I used it a lot throughout college as well, the first year. And when I really went all in on my health, I quit cold turkey. And just for a little bit of context, like I was a pretty heavy user. I would use it before I worked out every day, before I went to bed at night. So it was a pretty like critical part of my routine. And I went cold turkey and I completely cut it out, whilst simultaneously like going super extreme on my health. And for about 3 to 4 months, I was completely off of it. And it really messed me up, like full transparency. Um, it was really like the only vice or the only act that I had where I could still kind of like let some steam off and relax. And so when I finally went all in on health, not just diet, but lifestyle as well,
Yeah.
I didn't have that one thing like keeping me grounded and keeping me in check.
Sure.
And so like slowly I collapsed and I started to just I couldn't maintain the way that I was living.
Mm.
And um yeah, and so those 3 to 4 months were super important and they were a learning experience for me. And
So was it
slowly,
that collapse? Sorry, was it more of the social isolation? You're losing that sort of social element,
yeah, I
or
mean
was it
like
also sort of like a withdrawal type?
it wasn't the withdrawal. Like I was fine not being on it,
Yeah.
as far as like cravings went, but like just my buddies and I would like hang out on their porch at night and like smoke a joint and hang out and like
Yeah.
just talk about our day. And once I cut that out, like I really, this is it. This is the essence of it. I didn't have anything that I could connect with people on
Mm.
in my um like demographic. And
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good thing to say that like you should be connecting with people about drugs, but like at the same time, um, I felt like if I could use it in moderation and I could control it,
Yeah.
it could be beneficial in some ways to at
Yeah.
least like longevity and maintaining the way that I was living.
For sure.
And so yeah, I eventually made the decision to try and reintroduce it. And it's been only positive, like absolutely positive. I don't need to go into details, but like I source it locally,
Yeah.
pesticide free, organic, like it's very clean. And it's exclusively for sleep. I wear my Whoop
Mm.
24 hours a day, and my thing when approaching this was like I'm going to track every metric and actually determine like if reintroducing this is going to help me or hurt me.
Sure.
And I was so religious with just tracking, my stress levels, my deep sleep, my REM sleep, my recovery, my heart rate, everything. And the consensus was that it helped me.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
think the most striking example of that is just the improvement in my sleep.
Yeah.
Um, and I see a lot of people say like it could harm your sleep. And to that, I would just advise you to really like try it
Yeah.
and experiment with it and see if you're interested and see
Yeah.
if
No, I think everything in moderation is. I mean, not everything, but I think like
yeah,
certain things.
I think
I think
certain
I think
things.
marijuana is a good example of that, and especially if you're sourcing it right and you're doing it responsibly. Like, there's a big difference between like hitting a cart all day that's full of
Totally.
chemicals, and which is what people get dragged into, especially in college.
Exactly, yeah.
But I totally see, yeah, the social element of it, especially when you're around people who are doing some sort of thing, whether it's marijuana or drinking, like, and you're the only one who's not.
Yeah.
Like you said, connecting with them on that, I mean, it's different, and it's like it's a different experience being all sober versus everybody not and you are. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I could definitely see why that would be something that you missed out on, and I can see the benefits of it. Like, our body has so many cannabinoid receptors for a reason. I mean, I'm not saying it's necessarily smoking marijuana is like. I guess I'm not saying that to say that that is something that, like you said, everybody should do.
Yeah.
But we do have a built-in system in our body to accept those cannabinoids, and use them to be beneficial. So
Yeah. It's really just about how you approach it.
yeah, yeah. So that's interesting. So using it not only as a social vice, or whatever you want to say, but using it as a tool to aid in your health journey. I think that's,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
really interesting because a lot of people see it backwards, like it's
Mm.
counterproductive to my health journey. And sure, maybe like the act of smoking itself could be, but I think it's interesting that like I took the time to really learn about what it was like to not have it
Yeah,
and to invest in my health. And then when I decided to re-implement it, I felt like I was much more well versed and educated on like how I would be able to do that.
sure. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, and you hear the arguments like it's a plant at the end of the day, and like, I mean,
Yeah.
I take ashwagandha, and it's a root. Like,
Hmm.
I don't know the different, and a lot of people take supplements that are derived from plants or roots or whatever it may be,
Yeah.
and it's different. I mean, tea, it's the same thing, flowers, roots. Um, so yeah, I honestly, I don't see being a huge issue unless you're doing it wrong. Because I mean, it's an interesting topic, and we know
Yeah.
this,
It's
for too
very
long.
it's very personal and subjective.
It is, but like, if you look at like the commercialization of it, like
Hmm.
in the 80s, like you would never have a 20% THC
Yeah.
plant. Like, that just didn't exist. And
Totally.
now it's all like you're just pushing the limits, and that's where it kind of gets an excess. But if again, it's about sourcing and responsible use, and using it in a way that's actually gonna to help you reach
Yeah,
your goals, because it
absolutely.
can be a slippery slope. That I think marijuana specifically can be a slippery
I
slope
completely
because
agree.
if you use it too much, if you use it in excess, it can have the opposite effect where
Yeah,
it's.
and it did contribute to a lot of those years where I was really unhealthy.
Hmm.
So it was it was a cool full circle moment to
Yeah,
kind
and
of
like you said,
still,
like exercise, like although it makes you crave DoorDash or whatever, like exercise
yeah,
feels better on it. Good food
yeah,
feel better on it. Like eating
totally,
raspberries and fruit. I don't do it anymore, but again, in college,
yeah,
I did. But yeah, it can. Again, it's about where the direction you take it is really where the benefits can come in.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Um, all right. So staying in the lane, a little bit of controversial food takes. I just want
Yeah.
to get your opinion. So what's your take on raw milk and raw
Oh,
dairy in general?
I'm so happy you brought this up. I think that there is so much nuance in context,
Hmm.
and nobody talks about it. So I'm gonna try and summarize it as quick as I can.
Yeah.
The reason raw milk, and excuse me, I'm gonna rephrase that. The reason pasteurization and the heating of dairy occurred was that it was synonymous with the increase of industrial farming and mass producing milk and certain dairy products. And what happened was there was this dramatic increase in demand for all of this milk, and farmers wanted a way to speed up the process of sourcing it and getting it to consumers. And so pasteurization, which is essentially the heating of your milk to remove certain bacteria, certain things within that milk that might harm you. This occurred because the animals weren't treated properly. And when you source raw milk from an industrial feedlot cow, that bacteria is going to be really bad for you.
Yeah.
But here's the nuance. If you do the same sourcing from a pasture-raised local regenerative cow, that bacteria is going to be incredible for you.
Yeah.
And so people need to understand that raw milk is not one-sided, and that the reason that milk was pasteurized in the first place is because the animals weren't being treated properly
Yep.
and their milk wasn't nutritious and healthy.
Yep.
And so that's such an important nuance that I just don't see enough people talking about.
No, it's also a response. You said it came with the industrialization of ag, but
Yeah,
that was a response to the industrialization of humans. Like I believe
totally.
it. I think it first originated in New York, like New York City,
Hmm.
because so many people started to be confined in such small areas. There was no area for farmland, and you
Yeah.
couldn't get it in. So transportation was another part of it, and like shelf life. That's why the pasteurization and homogenization of it. So you have to get it from the farm into the city, and you
Yeah.
couldn't do that with raw because it's got to be refrigerated more, and it doesn't last as long.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it's just such a good example of something that humans have gotten our hands on and tried to fix. And then today, it's just such a funny thing that is the most controversial
I know.
topic like in the health
Yeah.
community. It really is. It's very polarizing,
It's so
but
polarizing.
all of the data, or and even if you look at the data, like even
Yeah.
today, like the raw milk, like people who get sick from raw milk, it's like so much lower than
I
people who
know.
get sick from store-bought lettuce. Like
Yeah.
it's
And
pretty
deli
damning.
meats too. I saw
Oh
that
yeah.
as well.
Uh-huh. Everything. Because
Yeah.
it just seems, going back to the intuition of it, like it's a similar concept to, honestly, like pasteurization. It's like kind of like when you're talking about the bacteria. It's like humans taking antibiotics.
Yeah.
Like if you take an antibiotic even properly, if you've got like a bacterial issue, it
Hmm.
kills the bad bacteria, but it also kills all of your good bacteria.
Yeah.
That's why you have to really limit your antibiotic intake. It's the same thing with pasteurization. Like the reason that logic is wrong is the same reason that the pasteurization logic is wrong, because you're killing the bad bacteria, but you're also killing all of the good bacteria. So it's just counterproductive. And then at that point, you're just drinking
Dead milk. That's
dead
what you would
milk,
call it.
and then
Yeah.
you fortify it with vitamins and minerals that aren't bioavailable. And like we were talking about with
Yeah.
protein, like the gym bros who will just max out their protein in whatever
Hmm.
way necessary, like that protein is not the same as getting your protein from dairy or from meat.
Absolutely
It's
not.
not it's
Yeah.
not bioavailable.
Not
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. So are you pretty, it seems to be, I mean, based on your videos, like are you pretty balanced when it comes to selecting your food and putting together your plate? Like, is it a mix of fruits, veggies, meats?
Yeah. Really interesting topic because I used to do what's called the animal-based diet, and I
Yeah.
kind of still do. A lot of that was facilitated by Paul Saladino, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yep.
I think that these figures in the health industry are too extreme, and I think they're biased, and I think it's borderline dangerous, some of the rhetoric that's being spread, especially from Paul. And don't get me wrong, I love Paul Saladino, I really do.
Yeah.
I love what he represents, but I mean, we need to be eating vegetables. Like that's really it. I see all of the TikTok cutting board kids, and like I was one of them for sure. But like people eating like berries with meat and eggs, so much better than processed foods. Like
Yeah.
so much better. Don't get me wrong. But I will say, like, touching on more of the holistic side of like the way that I live, there are Ayurvedic principles, which are essentially like ancient ways of living and eating. And one of the important topics that my aunt actually really like helped me learn about is you really shouldn't be consuming fruits, which are fast digesting carbohydrates, with something like meat and eggs, which are really long digesting. And so the fruit will like ferment in your gut on top of this food. And it's really not that good for you.
Yeah.
So I slowly transitioned from like the meat, fruit, eggs to just balance
Yeah.
in complex carbs, vegetables, fruits. But I really just I try not to mix my fruits with heavier foods that take a while to break down.
Sure. Yeah, interesting. So
Yeah.
on the complex carbs topic, for me, what's worked for me a lot is
Hmm.
avoiding, well, honestly, I don't think it's gluten anymore. I think it's more an issue with the type of wheat. But when it
Yeah.
comes to breads and stuff like that, what's your take there?
I think modern bread from the grocery store is garbage.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that there's place for bread and gluten in somebody's diet, but you just have to be really careful, especially with like enriched flour
Yep.
and glyphosate, which is just it's used so much with bread and
Hmm.
carbs. Um, from my experience, sourcing local organic sourdough with a long fermentation process has been the most beneficial for me and my gut. Um, and I've really experimented with bread. I've tried different bakers, different types of bread, and local sourdough is really the only thing that I feel safe eating.
Yeah.
Obviously, organic as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, look, I think if you're able to digest certain breads properly and the ingredients are clean, it doesn't have to be sourdough,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
generally that's my go-to.
In general, yeah. I mean, like with the
Yeah.
thing with like gluten is always painted as the villain, but I've just
Hmm.
learned over the years it's really not. I mean, again, if you
Yeah.
you eat food, you eat bread in Europe, you're not gonna have the same effects because like wheat in America, it's GMO, it's made to grow just in as much volume as possible, and
Hmm.
it's also what's unique about wheat is that it's sprayed after, like before, right before it's harvested, as opposed to like as it's growing. It's like dry sprayed, so
Yeah.
it's much higher in glyphosate than your other things because of
Yeah.
that. So okay, going back to just I guess just local in general. So we
Mm.
talked a little bit about sort of that connection with the farm and who makes your food. So like, what is your when you go to the farmer's market? What are some of the questions that you ask? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you have your vendors now that you go
Yeah,
to,
absolutely.
you know they're reliable, and I do too. But if you're just starting out and you're going to a farmer's market or you're looking somewhere like Locavana, like what what terms do you look for? What things do you look for, and what do you avoid? I guess what buzzwords do you kind of avoid?
That's actually a perfect question because all year I've been going to my market at school in Southern California, but I just came home and I haven't really, I mean, I haven't been here since like last summer and I wasn't consistently going to the farmer's market at all. So I kind of had to restart that process recently
Yeah.
where I introduced myself to the farmers. I really like ensure that I'm sourcing my foods properly. But I I go to the farmers market every Saturday and I really only get my produce there.
Hmm.
I have a local farm, shout out Miller's Bio Farm, PA. And that's where I get my animal stuff.
Okay.
And so I guess like I don't really need to ask them questions because I did a lot of research, but for the animal products, your eggs, your meat, your dairy, I always make sure that my eggs are pasture raised, obviously, which essentially means that the hens are allowed access to, like, I believe it's 108 square feet of pasture to roam freely. And that also, pasture raised also refers to the diet of the hen as well,
Oh.
eating things like bugs, worms, things that they should be eating. And so, yeah, pasture raised for my eggs is always a big thing. If you're at the grocery store, make sure it's organic as well, but that isn't as important when it's local because it's implied. With my meats, same thing, really. I always go pasture raised if I'm able to, because grass fed, which is obviously better than grain fed, um, in a lot of grocery stores, grass-fed meat essentially could mean anything. Like they could eat grass and then be finished on grain.
Yep.
And it also doesn't talk about like how the animal's raised. And so many times you'll see like grass-fed on meat, but the cow's raised in a feedlot their whole life and they just eat grass. And so you really need to be careful with those buzzwords. But I
100%.
think top of the line, my favorite like grocery store meat company is Force of Nature, which I work with, and they, they're regenerative, which is a huge topic I want to dive into a little bit. But their animals are just raised on pastures and fed grass. And so that's really important to me for animal products.
Yep.
As far as produce goes, what's interesting about the farmers markets is a lot of them aren't certified organic,
Yep.
so you really have to be careful. They could be using pesticides, but if you're able to really talk to the farmers, talk about where that crops are raised, I just make sure it's 100% organic and they don't spray with anything. But I would advise you to like look up their socials if you're interested and really like see what their farms like and how they're growing crops.
Yeah, or go there. A lot of our
Yeah.
vendors, like we're building this platform because we want, for the people who don't necessarily want to go, we want to provide them all the information because we vet them. We go, we make sure it's meeting the standards that they say. But if you do want to go out, like go to the farm, like every vendor or every farm that we've talked to, like they want that. Like they want to share that connection with you. Like
Totally.
it's not a one way thing. Like they really want you to be involved and to go and see what they do, especially like the small farms that aren't certified organic. They want to like show you what a biodynamic farm looks like and talk to you about how they avoid pests without using pesticides, and really just gives you great insight into how everything works, and it gives you a new appreciation for your food when you see how it's grown. It's not just
Totally.
like behind a veil. And that's something I've heard people say, like our not our generation, but like younger kids. Like I've seen people ask, like in interviews, like ask kids like where does your food come from, and they say Costco or
Mm,
Kroger, and it's just such a
scary.
it's so scary. It's
Yeah,
dystopian.
it
Um,
is.
yeah. So yeah, let's go to regenerative,
Yeah.
because I think it's such an important topic because it is the gold standard and it's the best way to raise livestock and produce. But at the same time, there's no regulation behind the terminology. So unlike USDA,
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
yeah, so USDA organic has obviously a set of standards placed on it by the government, which aren't perfect, but at
Hmm.
least you know at a baseline what is not being included.
Yeah.
Regenerative is not policed at all. So if you are at a store and you're seeing regenerative on things, you have to be wary of it. But
Yeah.
regardless, so I guess what's your view on regenerative ag?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm still learning. So everything that I just want to preface, like everything that I say about regenerative farming is from my own experience and
Yeah,
things that I've seen, just communicating with different businesses. So don't take this as like the concrete definition, but I think regenerative agriculture is really just about using soil multiple times and allowing whatever animals or crops to be raised on that soil to enrich the soil with nutrients and I think having nutrient-rich soil is so incredibly important for what's raised on it.
Everything.
And I saw this was such an old podcast, but Rogan and Sadhguru did a really long episode about soil. And so anybody who's interested, I encourage you to listen to that. But they talked about how soil is unfortunately dead in a lot of places in the US now because it's been used so often to grow stuff with not much regard for the quality and the way that it's being maintained.
Mhm.
And so, in my interpretation of it, regenerative agriculture is really just prioritizing the health of the soil
Yep.
and allowing it to be used multiple times and continue to be nourished, and as a result, nourishing what's raised on it.
Exactly. Yeah. Soil,
Yeah,
like people don't, you think about dirt and it's like soil is a living organism. Like
yeah, it really
everything,
is.
your soil is well, it should be alive. And when it's alive, like
Yeah,
think about produce that's grown in soil that doesn't have those living organisms. And, and that's why they have to use so many sprays and all these different practices. It's to supplement for what they're not getting from the soil. So
it's a
all of the
shortcut at the end of the day.
Exactly, yeah,
Yeah,
and every year they got to spray more and more because the soil is more and more degraded, and they're not getting anything from that.
yeah,
So it's like if you're eating, like again, I'm not gonna tell somebody to not eat produce. Like if your options are eating produce from Walmart that's conventional or eating ultra processed foods,
yeah,
obviously 100% of the time,
of
without a
course.
doubt, go the whole food route. But there's a significant difference between that and between local regeneratively raised produce. I
Totally.
mean, and it goes back to what you said about 50 years ago, the nutrient content. Like it's because of the soil health. Like that is
Yeah,
the reason because there's being grown on healthy soil. So if you grow something in something that's dead, what you get is going to be dead.
exactly.
That way,
Yeah.
it's the same thing you said with milk. It's dead milk. It's dead produce. I mean, it's alive visually. It's got the color. It's
Hmm.
got a artificially large look and bright color to it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's it's nothing really.
Yeah.
So,
I really do think regenerative agriculture is the future.
hmm
I just think it's so important for people to
yeah,
learn about and for businesses to try and implement.
yeah. It's such a like. It's kind of crazy to me because it's such a like you said, it's like a very new thing, kind of trend.
Yeah,
People are starting to learn about it, but it's like the most stripped down, holistic, close to earth and nature thing that we have. Like
absolutely.
when you like think about intuition and like how things are supposed to be, like
Hmm.
that's sort of the baseline. It's like you're not if you go back to even pre-agriculture, like pre like humans farming, everything grew with everything else. So you would never have a row of crops, a
Yeah.
single crop with nothing else on it. It's wild in a field or in a forest with other native plants around it,
Hmm.
giving it things too. And that's it's not only just the soil, but it's the cover crops and the plants around it. That's another important tenet of regenerative farming is biodiversity. So you're
Yeah.
not just planting a single plant, but within it you're planting native plants and other things that help reinforce its nutrients and make it stronger. So
Totally.
yeah, it seems like the things that are the most basic, core, fundamental truths,
Yeah.
at least in our eyes, because you've kind of seen past the BS,
Hmm.
those are the things that are the most controversial. Like if you eat regenerative organic food that looks pretty, then you're stuck up or you have daddy's money, or if you drink
Yeah.
raw milk, you're gonna kill yourself. And it's just like I don't know. It seems pretty backwards to me.
It's very backwards. I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Let's see. I guess what else do you do you want to go through? Any
Um, I mean, what kind of inspired you to create Locavana? I don't know if any guests have asked you that before, but
Yeah, so I actually I didn't create Logomana. So I got on about 2 months in.
okay.
So Seth Jordy and Chris Marandino, they're
Yeah,
the co-founders. They
got
started
it.
in November of last year. So we're still very new. But essentially they have a finance background. So they
Hmm.
both were in the private equity world. Um, Chris for a little bit longer, but they saw that in that industry, in finance, in consulting, in all of these sort of I don't know. They're high dollar and they're parasitic. As stripping it back, like that's what it is. They get
Yeah.
their money on the margins. So
Okay.
they get their money by charging fees and sort of exploiting issues like in supply chain and um yeah, it's not a good model, and they saw the parallels in the food system. So like for example with produce farmers who sell to the grocery store, they're getting like 4 cents to maximum 20 cents on the dollar for the produce that they're selling at the grocery store. And the reason for that is because in between them, how many people do you have to pay to
Yeah. There's a lot of
support
middlemen.
exactly to support that supply chain? There's all the middlemen. There's the
Yeah.
transportation, there's the warehousing, there's the grocery store fees. It's just not a system that supports who it should be supporting, which is the person who's producing the food.
Hmm.
So they saw a lot of parallels between what they're doing in the finance world and in the food supply, and obviously they had their own passions for healthy eating and healthy living, so they could draw those connections. And then so basically the core foundation of our company is to make the healthiest, tastiest food available to everybody.
Yeah.
That's a big thing is like accessibility. Like you might know that I need to be eating this way is better, but I can't get to the market every week, or I don't know what questions to ask. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. Like, where do you start when it's like you've been told these things your whole life, and you sort of know what direction to go, but then there's no easy way to get it. Because, like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we're used to a convenience today, and it's going to be hard for a lot of people to get away from that.
You're so
Um,
right there.
so that's like that's really what we're trying to build is a way for the customer to be able to easily access all of the best foods and then also have a transparent lens into that. So on our site you can click a product, click the farm, read the farm's bio, read the food story, and there's tags so you can see like pesticide free, non-GMO, locally raised, locally sourced. We have a whole bunch of standards that we vet and verify ourselves. So and there's also like a farmer Q&A section. So if you want to talk to them directly, you can talk to them. But that's the thing, ultimate transparency and accessibility. So essentially like how it works, I'm not sure if you looked into our site, but
Yeah. Yeah. I did some research.
yeah, so right now we've got 14 or 15 local vendors.
Mhm.
You can go and shop from all of them at once. So you can get your meat, your produce, your bread, cheese, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
all in one place. And then check out as if it was Amazon or Instacart. And then we have our own temp controlled trucks that we go and pick up from each farm,
Hmm.
box it up, and then deliver it to your door. So it's basically trying to imitate the convenience that everyone's used to with Whole Foods delivery or Instacart or whatever it may be, um, but in a way that enriches their health and then also supports the farmer. Because with Locavana, the farmer retains 80% margins
That's
versus
amazing.
maximum 20%.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean
Here's my question.
yeah,
I live in Pennsylvania, and so the Amish are just everywhere with these farms. There's so many local PA farms that
yeah,
all do amazing things, local grass-fed, pasture raised. But
okay,
my question is, these farms all independently do what you're doing. So they
hmm,
all have their own trucks and they all do deliveries and
yeah,
for me, I have like a pickup spot that I go to
sure,
weekly. It's prepaid. I'm wondering if they're willing to allow somebody else to take responsibility and
yeah,
control over that process.
definitely,
Because these farms, like, they really do take it seriously and they're very particular and
hmm,
meticulous about the process of getting food to consumer. And so
definitely.
I guess I'm just wondering, like, do you think it's going to be a process to really get these farms on board? And do you need to kind of build a reputation in order to entice them to
Yeah.
join your company?
So I think the Amish is a little bit different because there's different barriers there, potentially with the technology element to it. But
Yeah.
generally speaking, most of the farms that we've talked to and that we have on board, um, we're really providing a lot of value to them. So like we've talked to farms who go to 6 or even 7 markets a week really just to get by. So if you look at a farmer, their job is not just a 9 to 5, it's a 24/7. So in order to tend to their land and produce these foods, they're really on call all the time. So then on top of that, in order to not succumb to the system and sell to the grocery store, which is not sustainable with the
Yeah.
local model. they have to also be their own sales and marketing team. They
Mm,
have to lug all of their stuff to a
yeah.
location every week, whether that's the market, whether that's a drop-off spot, whether that's doing their own logistics and home delivery. So what we offer is, yes, of course, reputation is a big part of it, but we and that's a part like we can definitely like explain that to people and demonstrate our process, that our processes are dialed in. So our Chris, one of our co-founders, like he's done a lot of work in the operations logistics space.
Yeah.
So that's really our key differentiator on the farmer side. So there are some others, there's some similar services, whether that's farmers doing it themselves or there's some competitors. But all of them, the difference between us and them is that they are the farmers doing the work there. So it's whether that's bringing it themselves, hiring their own drivers, or making the farmers drop off at a certain location and then they distribute. With
Yeah.
us, you just get a pick list, we pick it up. We have food safety all the way. Like I said, our trucks are temperature controlled, our warehouse is temperature controlled. So it's all we're really focused on that because at the end of the day, the incentives are aligned. Like we want our customers to have the freshest, healthiest, best tasting food. And so pretty much every step of the way, we're incentivized to make that exchange as similar to the farmer handing it to a person as possible, really.
I
So
love it, man. That's makes a lot of sense. And I
yeah,
could see how that would be easier for farmers,
definitely. Yeah,
assuming that you're
we've
able
talked to
to,
some people where it's this could help us get our life back. Like we don't
yeah,
because I mean you think about it, just like a normal family, you work a 9 to 5, you're done at 5, and you spend time with your family. With a lot of farmers, like they're doing this hard work all day, every day, and then at the end of the day, they also have to then sell to people and bring everything. It's just like it's a lot, and I think we should be doing more to empower and incentivize people to farm in that way. And I think that's a part of the turnoff for people getting like younger people getting into agriculture is like, is there a market for it? And then how do I do that? Because you
yeah,
there's no other profession where you're expected to be an expert in your niche, which would be agriculture, but then also an expert in marketing, sales, communications, logistics, which is really is what's expected of them. So
it's amazing. Yeah, I
yeah.
think Locavana is the future, dude.
Yeah, we think so too. So right now we're just in the Midwest. We're in Chicago and then like West Michigan.
Mm,
But our goal is to be national. But also, so that's like our sort of our model is like national but localized. So
yeah,
you won't get the same when we're in Southern California. If you're shopping local Locavana in Southern California or in Pennsylvania or New Jersey, you're shopping from vendors in your area. You're not getting
yeah.
vendors from West Michigan. So it's like a scaled model, but
Hmm.
it's all hyper localized and still bolstering the local economies and the vendors in those
Yeah,
areas.
and I noticed you guys also carry brands that aren't local, like
Yeah,
Vandy and Verisalt.
yeah. So
Yeah, I
that's
think
where
that's,
that's part of our philosophy too. Like in our mission statement, it's like we want to provide easy access to what's healthiest and what's best tasting. And
yeah.
at times there are gaps where a local option just isn't available.
Hmm.
So Vera Salt is a great example for that. Like there's no salt mines in West Michigan.
Yeah.
So we want to find the best option for our customers so that we can really be a full grocery store replacement. So you can go and shop from these other brands. And then if and when we do find a local option to replace them, that's our end goal. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So awesome, dude.
Yeah. Any other questions about Locavana?
Um, how long have you guys been in business? It's rather new,
Uh,
right?
7 months.
So, wow.
So
It's
yeah,
like a full-on startup then.
oh yeah, it's balls to the wall. We're
Yeah.
all hands on deck, doing a lot of stuff, a lot of cool stuff that you'll see here soon. But
I'm looking forward to it, man.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. Awesome. Well, Jared, it was great to meet you. I
Yeah,
appreciate
you too,
the
Ben.
time. It was a great conversation, and I hope we can do some more stuff in the future too.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's